Hi, this is Mike from Minimal 3DP, and today I'm going to continue work on my unrepaired Ender 3 V2 Neo. I'm just going to do some simple rewiring of the hot end, so that way I can quickly change connections when I need to. So let's get started. Quick and easy quality of life upgrade I like to do to all my printers is change out the wiring and add a connector right in about this area for the hot end. That way in the future, when I need to change out hot end or the thermistor, it's easy to do. I don't have to rewire everything going back. And while I'm at it, I'll go ahead and add connectors to the fans as well. That way, future, if I decide to change the hot end, everything's all set up. The only wire I'll leave as is that for the CR touch, because I really don't want to mess with that, because that's a 4-wire connection. So I really don't want to mess around there. I'm just going to do all the 2 wires, which will be the hot end thermistor and then both fans. So I'm going to start by unplugging, turning off the printer, unplugging it, cutting the zip ties, and then getting started on the wiring. And I'll walk you through every step as I do things. First step, I'm just going to turn off the printer. And since I'm working on the wiring, I want to make sure I go ahead and unplug it. So that's a critical step. So let me get my tools out and then we'll go through the process here. I'm going to go ahead and cut this initial zip tie. I want to be real careful not to go through the sheathing here or touch the wires. And I'm just going to push the sheeting back. And let me see if I can find a clip to hold this. I'm just going to use a little binder clip here. Put this up here. Put that in place, and that'll hold the sheathing back. I'm just going to take a quick look at all the wires, make sure everything here is what I expect. So here's the thermistor wires, hot end, part cooling fan is blue and yellow, and then the standard black and red for the hot end fan. So let me show you what connectors I'm going to do, and then we'll go through those. So I'm going to use these CQ Robot JST SM 2-pin housing connectors, both male and female. Just so you can see them. 2 little connectors here. I can push the button and they come apart. So this will be really helpful when I need to change the hot end thermistor or the fans. And eventually down the line, if I decide to change out the hot end, I'll have that ability. Let me go ahead and start clipping some wires here. Now I'm going to start with the thermistor wires, and I'm pulling a little bit of slack through. So I have a little bit of slack in here, and I want to cut it right about here. So let's take and I'm going to clip that. Now, the nice thing about both the thermistor and the hot end, it doesn't matter which way I wire these, so that makes my life easier. We're going to start with pulling out some connectors. I'll set the connectors here. Now, it doesn't particularly matter which way I put these, but I'm going to go ahead and put this piece on the printer side, this piece on the hot end side. I want to look at these pieces and just take a quick look and see how these need to be wired. So the clips on, so I have 2 different pieces here. These go on the long piece. So these go on the long piece. These ones go on the shorter side. So let's go ahead and just start wiring these. So I'm going to bend off 2 of them. So I'll start with the hot end side first. So I'm going to put 2 here, and then take my wire strippers, and I need about 3 millimeters. What I do on my wire strippers is move this red piece all the way up. And you can see a little tiny piece of wire there. Just going to try to give that a couple twists, push that aside, then I'll do this one. Now, I'm going to go ahead and wire these. I'm not going to walk you through the steps of how to do the JST connectors. I actually have another video on that, so I'll link that above so you can take a look. have little inserts on here. I'm giving them a little bit of a tug because I want to make sure they're snug. And on this side, there's a little metal piece that sticks up, so that needs to go in this spot. I'm just going to push this in. Should be a little bit of a click as it goes in. And then I want to give it a tug again to make sure nothing's falling out. So that looks good. So we have the bottom connector, the hot end connector on. So now I'm going to use two of the longer pieces with the longer connectors. So I'll get two put aside. And then I'm going to strip the printer side wires. Again, about 3 millimeters should do it. Try to give these a little twist. Now, these connectors are actually pretty good, but I've noticed, particularly if you're working down towards the printer, all you need is one of these little wires touch another wire to get a short. So you always need to make sure you twist them together. So now I'm going to go ahead and put these long connectors wires, and then I'll come back when I'm done. I put the metal piece in. Then I want to take a look and see which way the clips go. So the clips are going to go up towards the top here as I slip this in. So I'm going to take a look here, and these are a little harder to get in. So you have to push them really good. So I have both those in. Oh, and the one didn't stick. So you need to make sure that they're in tight. Now what I want to do is I have this connector in and I feel all right with it. But just to check things, let's go ahead and plug the printer back in before I proceed to the next set of wiring. So I'm going to plug the printer back in and turn it on. Now what I want to do is take a look at the screen and see if we're reading a heat on the thermistor. Now if I look at this on the hot end, it's reading the ambient temperature at 25, so I know the thermistor is actually working. If the thermistor wasn't working, this would read 0. I always go ahead and just check things before I proceed, because the last thing I need to do is get too much rewired and then trying to figure out what's what. So we have that done. So I'm going to turn the printer back off and then start work on the, again, back unplugged, and let's switch. Another benefit here is as I'm starting to work on the other wires, I can go ahead and just unplug these connectors and just push things out of the way. Gives me a little bit more room. So I want to tug at the hot end to pull a little bit of slack in the back, make sure I'm unplugged, and I'm just going to clip the wires for the hot end. Now, in the case of the hot end, I have a real cheap set of wire clippers I got 2 years ago at Harbor Freight. These are super cheap. What I found is they're excellent for cutting these cloth wires. I'm just going to go here, clip the ends off, so I can get a real clean cut with these, which I like. So I'm giving these a twist, and I'm going to go ahead and put on the bottom connectors first. So I'll get 2 of those out. First one, second one, and then I'll go ahead and put the connectors on. Inserts are together. Now I want to make sure the little prongs are towards the top. Once I have them in, I just want to give this a little bit of a tug just to make sure it's secure. So I have the hot end side is now together, and now I'm going to do the printer side. So again, we'll just start off by stripping the wires. I don't need, as I mentioned, very much here. Read somewhere about 3 millimeters. So that's what I do. Just want to try giving these a little twist. Now we're going to do the long pieces. So there's 1, there's 2. Now I'm just going to reiterate, this is the side that's really hard to work on, because you don't have as much room, it feels like to me. So let me go ahead and put the metal inserts in, and then we'll get the top side on. I have both sides, the connector on for the hot end. I'm just going to go ahead and plug that in, make sure everything's tight. Plugged in the back of my printer. So I'm turning the printer back on. I have an ambient temperature. Now I'm just going to go to Control and Temperature. And I'm going to make sure I can heat up the hot end. So I'm just going to go up to 80 degrees. And I'm watching the controls here, and the hot end is heating up. So the wiring for both the hot end and the thermistor are correct. That's all good. Shut this off, unplug, and then I'm going to head and do both fans. Just to give me more room, I'm going to unplug both the hot end and the thermistor, push those aside. I'm going to start with the red-black wire. So verify I'm unplugged, and then let's go ahead and snip that wire. So I pulled a little extra slack through, and I'm actually with these, I'm going to need to split these wires, red and black. Now, for these, it's red to red, black to black, and I'll show you my trick for dealing with that. I always get turned around when I'm putting these in, trying to get it all connected right. So what I do is just mark the red side, so I have the connector together. So I want the red on this side. Going ahead and just putting a little bit of red there. I'm going to do it on the other side as well, so I can. So you can see just a tiny, tiny little bit of red here, this side. And that just lets me, as I'm trying to put it together, so I don't mess this up. So just, again, put a little bit of red on there, my pen aside, and then we take these apart. Now, to keep my streak going, I'm going to start with the hot end side wires first, and then I'll work on the printer side. This wire, I'm going to strip it. Black side and do the same. As I mentioned, the polarity on these, where the wire to wire does matter on the fans. Yeah. So I have both the red side, the black side stripped. So let me go ahead and get my connectors out. Now, at present, I'm leaving these fans as is. My hope is, or maybe in the future, I might take this printer apart, put a new duct system on it. Either way, if I do that, I might as well have these wires set up so I could just disconnect everything easily. So I'm going to put these metal connectors on, and then I'll come back. And as I mentioned, I have a linked video of using JST connectors and how to put those together. Taking this piece, and on the left side is the red. So I'm going to put that in first. It's slipped in. Let's put the black side in. Now the black side's in. So now I'm going to the printer side, and I'm going to go ahead and strip these wires. Now I'll include a list of tools I use in the video description below. Let's go ahead and get all this connected, and then I'll come back. This side's the red over here, and I need the clip pointing up. Let's insert that one first. Then we'll do the black side. I'd actually put it in the right side there. I'm going to give this a little tug. Feels good. And then I'm going to go ahead and just clip it in, although looks like I'm here on this one. Just going to use my tweezers to bend the metal a little bit and pull it in. Pull it through a little bit more. So that's looking good. Now I won't test this fan. Or actually I can. Let me go ahead and plug everything up, and I'll test it so that way you can see me do every step here. Actually have to make sure I plug everything in the right connection. That'd be disastrous. Everything's plugged in. I can plug in the printer in the back. and then turn her on. What we're going to do is let's look through the settings and see if there's something here for turning on the fans. So I rewired my hot end fan. That's now going. I can see it spinning. So we're good to go there. So now let's turn her back off, unplug, and then the last one we have to do is the park cooling fan. So we want to, again, verify we're unplugged. And then let me get all my wires arranged here, and then we'll do the last one. Last one I'm working on here is the park cooling fan. Just going to go ahead and clip this connection and then split these wires. These, of course, need to be yellow, yellow, blue, blue. Just for the heck of it, I'm going to put a little bit of red down here, yellow, and I'll do that on the uphill side too. I'm putting that there because in the future, if I change out these fans, I can never remember it's yellow goes to red, blue goes to black. And this way I'll already have the lines marked, so I won't have to go back to my references and figure all that out. So going back, I'm just going to go ahead and strip yellow wire, blue wire, and then similar to what I did before, I'm pulling out my connectors, and I'm just going to mark this. Use my red ink again. I do that so I can make sure when I'm twisting things around, I get everything in the right hole. So let me go ahead and do the metal connectors. So I have two of those out, and I'll start on the hot end side. So let's go ahead and do that. Grab my connector. I'm going to make sure the yellow goes in the mark side. Looks good. Let's get the blue side in now. There we go. And then I'm going to go to the printer side and strip these wires. Put little bits on. So I'm just going to put the yellow side and the mark side. Now, something I should have mentioned earlier. Pretty much can't, once you get these in, if they snap in place, they're really hard to get out, almost impossible. So you want to be sure when you put these in. Now, on this top side, I don't really like how those felt. So I'm just taking my tweezers and pulling it through a little bit more. Let's make sure these snap together. Of course, I can see the wires lined up because I marked everything. So I'm just connecting everything now. So I have everything connected. So I'm going to turn everything on, make sure everything's coming on. My readings are all, let me see if I can range cameras a little bit so you can see this. So I've gone ahead and turned the printer on. As you can see, everything's showing up and looking good. So now I just have some cleanup to do, and let me go ahead and fix that. And then the printer should be ready to use. So last step, what I like to do is unplug everything. I'm going to put a twist tie above the connectors on the printer side. And then clip the excess off. Then, for the heck of it, just again to take pressure off, I'm going to go ahead and put a twist tie on the hot end side. Hopefully it'll give me a little strain relief. Cut off the excess and be very careful of the wires. And then one last test. I'm just going to go ahead and plug the printer back in. and turn it back on. And just make sure all my readings are coming up. So I've turned the printer back on. Everything's looking good. Just to test again, let's go to control, temperature. I'm going to go ahead and just turn the hot end up to 50 and make sure it starts to heat up, which it does. I'll also go down, turn the fan up to 100, and I can hear it's kicked on. So we're looking good. So I've completed this small, I guess, quality of life upgrade. This is Mike from Minimal 3DP. Thanks for joining me today. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments below. If you like what I'm doing, please share. Also, I'd like to hear any feedback you might have or ideas or things you'd like to see for future videos. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Have a good day.